how it should be done. There we go. That is always fun. We're gonna be doing this all day today. I am gonna love it. Hey, when you got high water and it's stained, there's almost nothing better out there when you've got high skies and a sunny day than pitching and flipping into wood. We're gonna go over some options today to show you how to get the most out of your jigs or your plastic. Don't miss this episode. This is Jim Crowley Outdoors. Giving us the country and the cool, clean air. Whenever that smoke fills, city gets too much. Well, we're gonna drive out to the country for a pick-me-up. Yeah, we're gonna pick me up. Yeah, the noise level's rising, I'm running late. 5-lane gridlock in the state. Man, that was fun. I felt that hit. That's what we're talking about now. That's getting a little better. Look how he ate that. Look how he ate that. I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit. Let's see if I can get the, so I can show you here. He is upset. Let's get this jig out of here. Put that, it's a nice fish right there. Okay, so what we did on this jig, and when we go over the equipment and stuff like that, I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but this is a really interesting, I really like the way that this jig was designed. We did with a flat head. We got a big 4.0 VMC flipping hook on here. And it just, when I trim my jigs for skipping, I cut the skirt down, I put a short trailer on there. And so that's exactly what that looks like there. But when we go over the equipment section, we'll really get into it and show you exactly how I set the jig up. Now they're biting. We could go catch another one.
This segment of Hook and Hunt TV is brought to you by these and other fine sponsors.
You got it. Very good. Good? Yeah.
There you go. Man, I watched, when they eat a jig like that, that is so much fun. Check this out. This is this new little jig that I helped design for Lure Parts Online. It's called the Flip and Skip with a flat head. And let me put this fish back real quick. It was cool. I skipped the bait up there. As soon as it hit the water, I saw the swirl come off the V in the lay down, and he ate it. Just a great little. That's just the best feeling in the world for me when you're pitching a jig or plastic and you see that swirl and they come out and get it. Fun. Hey, one tip that I can give you is that when you're fishing real shallow water, and even though the water's a little bit stained today, I don't want to give the fish any extra ideas that were there. So I know we're going to be fishing in about 2 or 3 foot of water. So as effective as my hummingbird graph is for this area, I'm just going to turn the graph off. I don't need any extra noise. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm going to be fishing 2 to 3 foot deep. And I'm also going to put my trolling motor on a lower setting. I want as little noise, as little interference as I can. I don't want to give the fish any extra clues that we're there. And that way we can be a lot more effective with our presentations. One of the nice things about being in heavy cover like this is that you have options. You can either pitch the bait to it, or with overhanging trees like that, you can skip to it. And how I skip is, the reel doesn't matter, whatever brand reel you use, it's fine. What I do is I dial it down and I don't fill the spool all the way to the top. You don't need a special reel to do this. You need to get out in the water and practice where your setting is perfect for you. I have it where it is for me. The rod I'm using is a 7.3. This is an MB 7.3 12 to 25. It's an American Tackle Bushido blank. Why am I telling you that? Because it's got a fast enough tip to where I can load that jig up to where I can skip it. Because what's doing the skipping is the motion that you do in the tip of that rod. Let me show you. Okay, and I'm going to roll my wrist over. And I skipped it right back underneath there. The more you learn to skip, the better your chances are going to be to get at fish that nobody really wants to take the time to. Because skipping is a little bit tough to learn, but I have so many more options to work the cover once I can pitch it, once I can flip it, and once I can skip it. Now, when I set up the jig, just like we were talking about before, we got that flat head on the flip and skip. This is 3/8 and ½ ounce. We make it in those 2 sizes. There's a lot of muck in the bottom here. So although in the summertime, a lot of times I will throw a ½ ounce jig because I want a reaction strike, I'm not doing it here. And the reason I'm not doing it here is because that muck on the bottom, the bait drops too fast and the fish are suspended up alongside the branches. A 3/8 falls slower and it doesn't get stuck in the bottom as much. I trim my skirt to about about 1/8 of an inch below the hook. I trim my trailer back a little bit, and so I have a nice compact package. It's easier to skip that way. If I just do it out here, you can see how far I can skip that bait. And when you dial it down, as you will see, there's no backlash. Yes, you're still using your thumb. You're not going to use a bait caster correctly unless you learn to use your thumb. So when I dial it down, use my thumb, and make that motion like skipping a stone, that flat head hits the surface and skips my bait another 15 or 20 foot back, sometimes farther, if I'm thrown under a dock or under a bush. Learn to skip. Yes, it takes time. Yes, you'll have a lot of backlashes. And once you learn it, fishing a plastic or fishing a jig like this, you will become even more deadly at putting numbers of fish in a boat. All right, product section is pretty easy today. Every fish we caught on a jig, and we were talking about it throughout the process, but I just wanted to hit it on one more time. And since the water was stained, I always like contrasting colors. So this black, blue, and purple is what I was throwing. I was throwing a 3/8 size flip and skip jig, and a lot of the fish were coming as we were skipping that bait underneath that cover, those log jams, those overhanging trees. That jig worked really great. We were throwing it with the Shields swimming craw on the back. It was Okeechobee craw. This is a nice craw because it's hollow on the inside here. So if you want to, in really stained water, you can put a rattle in there. You can also stick a little float in there. It's a really versatile craw. I also use it from time to time on the back of a swim jig. So it does a lot of work. It's just a great little craw. Throwing this on 17-pound Suffolk Advanced fluorocarbon, very castable stuff, very strong, very abrasion resistant. And the part that I really want to concentrate on today for this section of the show is the rod. And I said it a little bit before, but I want to elaborate a little bit more for you about why I chose this rod. This is a Bushido blank. It's American Tackle, and it's an MB 7.3 12 to 25. It's got just a fast enough tip that I can really skip that jig. This is my jig rod. I've made 2 or 3 on this blank. I've got the carbon fiber handles on the back. This is extremely sensitive rod and has just enough tip so when a fish inhales the jig, I have just a little bit of a cushion, and that aids in that great hook set. Remember, to be really productive on all your stuff, and this may be getting technical, but that's what I do, matching your rod, reel, and line is really going to make you put more fish in a boat. If this was a real stiff rod, I'd probably pull the jig out of the fish's mouth. If it was real limber, I probably wouldn't get a great hook set. That all depends on you, on how your hook set is, how your power. Those are things you have to figure out on your own. But that's a setup that I use. That's the one I use consistently pretty much whenever I'm throwing a jig. Let's get back to the show. You know, I think one of the biggest problems people have with fishing a jig, there's 2 baits that I basically notice people are intimidated by, and that's jerk baits and fishing a jig. And if you think about the jig, it's a vertical presentation. You want it to drop down inside the cover that you're fishing. So with that being said, whenever I pitch a bait out there, I'm always going to strip line off, usually to the first guide, because I want that bait dropping straight down. I want it dropping into that cover. If you don't do that and just pick up on the rod, then the bait will just pendulum away from the cover and you've defeated the purpose. And so if you're not used to fishing a jig a real lot, how I usually do is I keep the rod at about the 2 o'clock position, and I kind of drag and shake or hop it till about 1, and then reel back down and start over again. 95% of your hits come on the fall. So the idea behind it is the more falls that I can make with the bait, the more chances I have of a fish hitting. So just remember something, whenever you're fishing this bait, it's not a real fast technique. If you want to fish a jig faster, that's when a swim jig comes in, and there's some other swimming techniques that you can do with it. But just for working a jig through heavy cover like this, that 2 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and just remember you want that bait to fall on slack line. Watch your line and pay attention to what that line's doing. Sometimes you won't feel the bite. The line will just start moving one way or the other. Fishing a jig is not hard. What it takes is practice.
This segment of Hook and Hunt TV is brought to you by these and other fine sponsors.
I love when they aren't a good jig bite like that. That is fun. That is so much fun. Oh. If I just had to fish one way for largemouth, there's no doubt in my mind that it would be flipping a jig or throwing plastic. Just fun. See ya. Oh, good one. Good one there. Get in here, buddy. Yeah. Now that right there is the way to end the day. Hey, I hope we showed you some more things about how great it can be to skip, pitch, and flip jigs. And that skip and jig from Lure Parts Online is just an absolutely phenomenal, phenomenal jig. Let me put this fish back. Hey, you want to find out more? Just go to lurepartsonline.com and we'll show you some codes at the end of the show where you can get a discount on some things as well as from some of our other sponsors. Hey, thanks so much for joining us this week. We're going to be on the road somewhere, someplace, hopefully with another great adventure. God bless you. I'm Jim Crowley. We'll see you soon.